Hi, Arcfieldweather.com meteorologist Paul Doreen here on Monday morning, July the 8th. A lot to talk about this morning with a focus on the tropical scene. Beryl came ashore near Matagorda, Texas earlier today as a Category 1 hurricane. It's producing some nearly 90 mile per hour wind gusts up the coastline. Came ashore about 80 miles to the south and west of Houston. It did take that late in the game turn to the north and west that allowed it to slam into the Texas coastline and even up the coast a little bit. It'll push to the north and east over the next few days into the Ohio Valley, and it can contribute to some heavy rainfall along the east coast during the mid and latter part of this week, and we'll kind of talk about that over the next few minutes. First of all, here's the latest position of Hurricane Beryl. Again, it came ashore as a Category 1 hurricane, now has sustained winds around 75 miles per hour. It will turn basically in this direction, go across Arkansas and then into the Ohio Valley by the middle of the week. It took that long trek through the Caribbean Sea just to the south of Jamaica, across the Yucatan Peninsula, all this time on a west-northwest path. Then it started to turn more to the north and west, and it ended up again slamming into the central coastline of Texas. I expected that northwest turn late in the game because high pressure that was kind of controlling its movement for the first several days for much of the lifetime of Beryl ended up moving to the east from the interior U.S. to the western part of the Atlantic, and that to me opened the door for this possible late in the game move to the north and west, and again into the central Texas coastline. Now, before we leave this page here from NOAA's National Hurricane Center, I just want to quickly take a look at the Pacific Ocean as to what's going on. Here's the eastern Pacific Ocean, and very unusual, totally quiet. Well into the month of July, totally quiet in the eastern part of the Pacific Ocean. In fact, they did have a system late last week that was the first system of the season, and I believe it was the latest start to a tropical season in the eastern Pacific ever recorded. Quite amazing indeed. Meanwhile, out in the central part of the Pacific Ocean right here, similar story. Extremely quiet here. No activity expected over the next couple of days. So right now, the only activity across the entire northern hemisphere tropical regions, Hurricane Beryl right across the central Texas coastline. That, of course, will weaken rapidly over the next 12 to 24 hours or so. But the Pacific Ocean remains unusually quiet well into the month of July. Well, one of the best ways to assess global tropical activities through an index known as the ACE, Accumulated Cyclone Energy, which takes into account both the longevity of a tropical system and the strength. And North Atlantic right here is now well above normal. The normal readings here of the ACE index up to this particular date, July 8th, 3.9, and we're at 35.5, way above normal in the North Atlantic thanks to Hurricane Beryl. But take a look here at the Pacific Ocean. Let's clear the deck here. Northeast Pacific, Northwest Pacific. They split the Pacific into two regions here, basically Eastern and Western Pacific, since it's such a large ocean. Very, very quiet here up to this particular date, way below normal, and that contributes to a below normal northern hemisphere. Pacific Ocean is the most critical for global tropical activity, since it is by far the largest ocean out there, and very quiet, nothing right now over the next few days, and this is quite unusual for the 8th of July to see no activity at all throughout the Pacific Basin. Again, on a global basis, below normal. Atlantic, yes, off to a quick start here. I expect a above normal season. You can take a look at the tropical outlook at arcfieldweather.com. Go to the seasonal outlooks. I'm not one of those that predicted historic type of season in the Atlantic Basin. There are others out there that have a record amount of storms. I had something like 16 or 17, somewhat above normal, but not a historic season like a lot of forecasters did. I hope I'm right on that. I just think there's too many variables that are inhibiting factors. For example, the Sahara Desert air is going to, on an occasional basis, come off the west coast of Africa into the open waters of the tropical Atlantic, and that is an inhibiting factor, preventing it from becoming a historic season. Again, I do believe it'll be above normal. Now, this is the official storm track of the remnants of Beryl. Again, right now over the central Texas coastline, weakens into a tropical storm later today, and then a depression by the time it reaches Arkansas by, let's say, midday on Tuesday, and continues off to the north and east into the Ohio Valley. So it'll likely produce some heavy rainfall right along this path into the Ohio Valley by the middle of this week, the latter part of the week. Does not mean there won't be heavy rainfall indeed along the eastern seaboard. Indeed, I think there's a good chance of some heavy rain setting up right in this region right here. We'll talk about that over the next few minutes, partly as a result of the remnants of Beryl passing up to the north and west, again, indirectly contributing to what I believe is a heavy rain threat along the eastern seaboard, let's say Wednesday, Thursday, potentially into Friday and Saturday, as well as a frontal system combines with the remnants of Beryl to enhance the chance of heavy rainfall along the eastern seaboard later this week. Well, before we take a look at some of the forecast maps here, let's go over some of the sea surface temperature anomalies that are quite interesting indeed as we are now well into the Atlantic Basin tropical season. First of all, we talked about the likelihood that Beryl would bring up some colder water from underneath the surface in the Caribbean Sea and cause a cooling at the surface. And indeed, that has been the case. There was that follow-up system, a trailing system, taking the same path as Beryl across the Caribbean Sea. And somewhat surprising to me, for sure, it completely fell apart. I thought at least it would maintain some semblance of a tropical cyclone as it crossed over the Caribbean Sea, but it completely fell apart. And here is the 7-day change. This is not the current anomalies. This is the 7-day change. And look at this cooling off right not only in the Caribbean Sea, but across the extreme southwestern part of the tropical Atlantic. But this is a 7-day change of temperatures and through a process called upwelling that brings some colder water from underneath the surface to the surface, and that indeed dropped temperatures in the Caribbean Sea, and it very likely contributed to the demise of that follow-up system that again was taking a similar path to Beryl right across the heart of the Caribbean Sea. This is the island of Jamaica right here, where indeed it got hit hard by the passage of Hurricane Beryl last week. Now, you may recall that it reached Cat 5 status right in this region right here, and then it started to weaken. By the time it hit the Yucatan Peninsula region, it was down to a Cat 2. So it went all the way from a Cat 5 in this part of the Caribbean to a Cat 2, fortunately, by the time it crossed over the Yucatan Peninsula region. It came out as a tropical storm and then re-intensified at the last minute here into Cat 1 hurricane as it slammed into the area around Matagorda in the central Texas coastline region. Now let's take a broad look at the sea surface temperature anomalies. This is the current sea surface temperature anomalies, not just the past 7 days, but the actual current sea surface temperature anomalies around the globe. First of all, here's the west coast of South America, and here is our La Nina. And one thing to note here is it's somewhat of a weaker look to those cooler than normal temperatures along the equatorial part of the Pacific Ocean than it appeared a week or two ago. This La Nina is not looking all that strong. And again, it's kind of weakened a little bit in the last week or two, and that could be another reason to believe this is not going to be a historic season that some have predicted for the Atlantic Basin. The stronger the La Nina, the more likely tropical activity will be above normal in the Atlantic Basin, the tropical part of the Atlantic Basin. It's starting to look more and more like a weak La Nina here, and certainly it has weakened somewhat in the past couple of weeks. Another inhibiting factor potentially here over for the next month or two. Cooler than normal water has certainly developed here right off the west coast of Africa. You have all these African waves that push to the west with the trade winds this time of the year, take that long trek along the tropical Atlantic Ocean. And if you have colder than normal sea surface temperatures right here, that's kind of an inhibiting factor. It inhibits the chance for development. If something does develop, it inhibits the chance for intensification. Again, for at least for a temporary basis, we have a cooling off from the Caribbean Sea, still above normal overall, but the change in the past 7 days have brought temperatures here to nearly normal, maybe slightly above normal levels in at least the central and eastern part of the Caribbean Ocean. So we'll certainly monitor both this area off the west coast of Africa and the La Nina that has formed over the equatorial part of the Pacific Ocean, but is not looking all that impressive right now. And again, if this does not strengthen too much, that lessens the chance of a historic type of season in the Atlantic Basin. A lot of warming across the northern Pacific Ocean and the northern Atlantic Ocean as well, with above normal sea surface temperatures in those two areas. Now, even though the remnants of Beryl pushed to the north and west of the I-95 corridor region during the midweek and the latter part of the week into the Ohio Valley, I do believe it will in some way contribute to the potential for some heavy rainfall along the eastern seaboard. And one of the parameters I like to look at is the precipitable water anomalies here. Basically, green on this kind of a map shows above normal, wetter than normal, more moist than normal air. And watch what happens here in particular in this part of the eastern third of the nation by the middle and latter part of the week. Now let's clear the deck here. Here's the remnants of Beryl as of this morning right over the central coastline of Texas. And we'll go forward here. It turns to the north and east as it weakens into tropical storm and then tropical depression status. This is midday on Tuesday. The remnants cross over Arkansas. And look at all this green right here in the eastern third of the nation, where it's been rather dry in recent weeks here. And then we go into the midweek. And again, this system pushes up into the Ohio Valley, the remnants of Beryl. But look at all this green here. This is above normal precipitable water anomalies. To me, it is a red flag for the potential of some heavy rainfall, let's say later Wednesday into Wednesday night and Thursday. We really have the combination of Beryl sliding with an upper level trough to the north and west of I-95. Meanwhile, to the east here, you have high pressure over the western part of the Atlantic Ocean. Again, there's an upper level trough here associated with this. All that produces southerly flow of air with very, very high available moisture content here. And again, this enhances chance for some heavy rainfall midweek, later in the week, let's say late Wednesday and Thursday, potentially into Friday and Saturday as well, as that frontal system that lines up along the eastern seaboard will be a stationary front, and it'll act as a conduit for lots of moisture to ride up from the south to the north later this week. Let's clear the deck here and go out a little bit farther in time here. This is Wednesday evening, and then all the way into the day Thursday. And again, keep in mind, this is all that green and even some blues here. That is very, very wet air. That is very, very humid air. You squeeze that moisture out and you can have a lot of heavy rainfall all the way up into New England by the latter part of the week. Again, this is a reflection of the remnants of Beryl at this particular time by later this week with strong high pressure over the western Atlantic. And by the way, we're using the 0Z run of the GFS here. Then we go all the way into the day on Friday. Notice that green does not go away, and that's because there's this strong southerly flow of air bringing very, very tropical-like air up the eastern seaboard with a stalled out, kind of a north to south oriented frontal system right along the eastern seaboard. Could raise the chance for some heavy rain all the way into Saturday. in portions of the eastern third of the nation. Now, we mentioned an upper level trough, and watch what happens here. Here's the 500 millibar height anomaly forecast map for this morning. We'll go forward here in time, and Beryl kind of gets pulled into that upper level trough over the middle part of the nation, and high pressure upper level ridging centered over the western part of the Atlantic Ocean. We go into Tuesday and then into Wednesday. And again, what this does is this upper level trough right here and an upper level ridge right in this region here. You have high pressure here, low pressure here, and all that does is promote a southerly flow of air in between. Winds blow counterclockwise around lows and in this fashion, and clockwise around highs in this fashion. And again, that leads to a lot of southerly flow here along the eastern seaboard, and that'll stick around here for a couple of days here. This is early Wednesday. We'll go out a little farther in time. Thursday, and again, this is the reason I think this is a red flag. It's telling me there's a possibility of some heavy rainfall. By that I mean some strong thunderstorms that can produce some heavy rainfall and more widespread than we've experienced in the eastern part of the nation during the past several weeks. Here we go into Thursday and finally into Friday. You still have that high position over the western part of the Atlantic, meaning you still have some kind of a southerly flow along the eastern seaboard. By the way, very hot weather over the western states over the next several days. Incredibly hot, with many places experiencing record high heat across the western part of the nation. Meanwhile, cooler than normal conditions with that upper level trough over the central part of the U.S. Well, let's wrap up with the surface forecast maps, again using the 0Z run of the GFS here. All these maps, by the way, from tropicaltidbits.com. There, Hurricane Beryl, as we speak here early Monday morning, central Texas coastline. It came in as a Cat 1 hurricane after it strengthened again while over the southwestern Gulf of Mexico from tropical storm back into hurricane status here. Pushes over Arkansas by the middle of the day on Tuesday and headed towards the Ohio Valley. And there we go into the day on Wednesday. Again, it slides up to the north and west of the I-95 corridor region, but I think the atmosphere will become so humid with tropical moisture, with that long-standing fetch of air from the south to the north along a stalling out frontal system, that heavy rain will be the possibility up and down the eastern seaboard throughout much of the eastern third of the nation, where again it's been relatively dry overall in recent weeks. Here we go now into the morning hours on Thursday, and you can even see some semblance of a frontal system right here in this pressure pattern here. The black lines are isobars representing lines of equal pressure. There's a frontal system right in this region right here. Again, a southerly flow of air will push some very tropical-like air up along the Atlantic seaboard. We're talking about the threat of heavy rain later Wednesday, Thursday, potentially into Friday and Saturday as well. Let's now move forward here. This is Thursday morning. We'll go into Thursday evening. Now look at that. Even the GFS here is putting out a lot of heavy rainfall right along that frontal boundary zone. Beryl is up in this region right here, but it kind of slows down as it coalesces with that upper level trough, and you have this very, very moist setup here developing along the eastern third of the nation. Again, later Wednesday, Thursday, potentially into Friday and Saturday as well. Here we go into the day on Friday. Still, this particular model run depicting some potential heavy rain all the way into the end of the work week. We'll go out a little bit farther in time, and here we go by Saturday morning. Still some rain right along the east coast here. So an interesting week coming up. Very hot in the mid-Atlantic region today and tomorrow. Then the combination of Beryl pushing up to the north and west and a stalling out frontal system along the eastern seaboard brings the threat of some heavy rain to much of the eastern third of the nation later Wednesday, Thursday, potentially into Friday and Saturday as well. Out west, very, very hot conditions, record heat in many places over the next few days, including much of California, the central U.S., cooler than normal conditions associated with that upper level trough. That's it for now. For arcfieldweather.com, this has been meteorologist Paul Dorian.